have a small prayer, a couple prayers, and a little bit of a teaching before our Shabbat dinners. And so this is a little bit different than a normal Friday night Shabbat. One of the differences is that Judd does not have his guitar and won't be singing. So please be forewarned in advance that I don't plan to try to sing tonight. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Lulav just whispered in my ear that she and Neely could sing. Maybe we'll try a little bit as a family, but we're going to be gentle in that space. What I'd like to do, if it sounds good for folks, is I'd like us to be able to light candles together. I'd like us to be able to say a blessing over our children. I'd love to be able to do a healing prayer. If anyone is commemorating a yard site, since we do have a minyan and would like to do a mourner's Kaddish, I'd like to create the space to do so tonight. And then I have a small teaching, and then we'll have some wine and challah. So we'll be together for just a little bit of time. We'll be together for just a little bit of time before we separate out and everyone can go to their Shabbat meals, if that sounds okay. And my question to get started, we'll start with our kids blessing over our children. But before we do that, does anyone have candles at the ready that we could, candles at the ready, and if you don't grab them, and we'll say a blessing over our children and then we'll light the candles, but I want to make sure everyone has your candles close by because that's coming up next. Okay, I saw Larry has his candles. Lou and Margaret, it looks like, just grabbed theirs. Rose has hers. Wonderful. Before we bless our light the candles to welcome in the Sabbath, I think it would be worthwhile perhaps for us to just take a second and we'll bless our children. If you'd like, I'll add in the chat of the Zoom right now the prayer book that we use. This is our prayer book for our Jackson Hole Jewish community. Our blessing over the children is on page 48. Our traditional readers of the blessing over the children are not here. If there's anyone who has interest in reading the English or the Hebrew, I'd love to invite you to do so in a moment. Anyone have interest in doing so? I would be happy to as well, but would love to make it. Oh, Andrea, looks like Theo just raised his hand.
For Hebrew.
Can he bless himself for the Hebrew?
Sorry, he was waving to his grandparents who were in a phone. So what would you like to do?
I was asking if anyone wanted to lead the blessing over the children, and Theo happened to raise his hand.
I don't have the words.
I can lead it. No worries, Andrea. We'll get you, and we'll get your book next
We'll do
time.
the blessing.
We'll just highlight Theo. That's what we're gonna
Okay.
do. So if you have kids close by, bring them close by. You can put a hand on top of their head. If you don't have kids close by, grab a picture of them, hold them up to the screen so we can see all the beautiful children that are connected to our community. If you don't have children, pause and take a moment to think about the kids that are in your lives or in our community that you help to raise by sharing wisdom and sharing support in our community. And what I'd like to do before we do the traditional blessing, let's take a moment, a quiet moment, to share either in our heads and our hearts or share verbally with your children a personal blessing, not out of the structure of our Siddur, but out of the depths of your heart, a personal blessing that you have for your kids, whether they're right there with you or whether they're somewhere far away or whether they're adopted children that you help to support in our community. So let's take a moment, we can mute and we can share those personal blessings, and then we'll come together for the more traditional blessings. Okay, I'm gonna highlight Theo. Andrea, is it okay if I highlight Theo? I'm gonna spotlight Theo for everyone because I mean,
Yeah.
come on, look at that kid. I'm gonna spotlight my twins over here. Do we have any other kids who have shown up? Hi, Nora and Ben and Barb and Mike and Bev and Al who have joined us since we got started. So good to see everyone. We're gonna bless our kids. Blessing over the children can be found if you have the digital Siddur on page 48. Ooh, is someone doing the blessing? Who was that? Oh, I heard it. Who was it?
Novak.
It was Mrs. Novak.
Rose, would you like to do the Hebrew for us?
No, I'm not that good.
Oh yeah, not true at all.
I'll do English if you need somebody to do it.
That's a deal. I'm gonna spotlight you if you're willing to do the English while I do the Hebrew. How about that?
Okay.
Deal. Okay, friends. On page 48, we have the blessing over our children. Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'Echim Menashe v'Simech Elohim kesara Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'Yivarechecha Adonai v'Yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha Yasa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God, this is blessing the children for sons. May God make you to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. And for daughters, may God make you to be like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. May Adonai bless you and watch over you. May Adonai shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May Adonai look toward you and grant you peace.
Amen. Thank you, Rose. Thank you. Let's spotlight some other folks. If you have candles and I can put a spotlight on you, we're gonna light candles here in a second. You turn Mom down? Yeah. Rose has her candles out. Rose, I'm gonna bring you back into the spotlight. And Andrea has her candles. I'm gonna bring you back into the spotlight. And Mag and Bobby have their excuse me, Bob and Maggie have their candles. I'm going to bring you into the spotlight. Anyone else have their candles out? Let's see. Larry, is that your candles? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Is anyone feeling like they'd like to sing the blessing over lighting our Shabbat candles? As we light them together. Bless our candles together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kedoshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadligner shel Shabbat.
Good job, Josh.
Was I close at least? Was I close?
Extraordinarily close.
Extraordinary. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful. We're in a moment, friends. I'd love to share a little bit of teaching, but before then, I'd like for us to be able to do a prayer for healing. And our tradition would be if there is someone that is in need of healing, that is a loved one, if they're in need of spiritual healing or emotional healing or physical healing, I'd ask that we take a moment and we'll do a meditative prayer for healing tonight for those individuals. meditative prayer for healing tonight for those individuals. So if you're willing to join me in closing your eyes or lowering your gaze, take for a moment a deep breath in. And as you do, and you breathe out slowly, imagine those individuals in your lives in need of healing. Hold them in your mind and in your heart. As we do so, we wish for those loved ones the following blessing. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who we hold in our hearts and in our minds. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and of spirit. And let us say, Amen. Friends, if you'd like to bring the name of a loved one who's in need of healing into our community, please unmute yourself, and I'll call on you so that you can share the name of the loved one. Bob and Maggie.
My wife, Maggie.
Thank you, Bob. Larry.
Samuel and Marianne.
Thank you, Larry. Anna, do you have someone you'd like to share? Janet?
I'd like to say the names, well, I don't have all the names, but the people of the town of Boulder, Colorado. Bill and I lived in Boulder for 27 years before we moved here. And our house was a mile from King Soopers. That was our grocery store. And I remember one of the victims.
Sending healing to our brothers and sisters in Boulder. Thank you, Janet. Lou and Margaret.
Melissa.
Thank you, Lou. Dad?
Nearly or Lulov.
Are you calling, Amelia? Do you have someone you're thinking about who needs healing? Okay, thank you for this. And Dad, did you have someone who needs healing?
Pop-up.
And Papa?
Pop-up, yeah, pop-up.
Okay, sending healing to Papa. Thanks, girls. Mike, do you have Mike and Barb?
Ray Greenberg and Francis Scher.
Thanks, Mike. Rose?
No, not me.
Okay. Carl? Okay.
Oh, lots of people on my mind, but I won't name them. 7 billion, in fact.
Thank you, Carl. Al, do you have someone you'd like to share?
Yes, my friend Jay Wells.
Jay Wells. Thank you, Al. We're keeping in our hearts and in our minds Jordan Davis and Richie Blasco as well. Let's take a deep breath. I won't try to sing the Misha Berach Friends, but let's take a deep breath and just hold in our hearts and in our minds those names who were just shared, and as a community send a spirit of love and of healing to our brothers and sisters in need of that support. Maybe next Shabbat, when we have a smaller Shabbat like this, that's just blessings over a meal, I'll try to sing the Misha Berach as well, but baby steps with my singing. Right, Mary? Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Okay, friends, I'd like to share a teaching before we have some wine and challah together, and also provide an opportunity for a mourner's kaddish as well. And I'd like to share briefly. This is the Shabbat as we enter into Pesach. This is a really beautiful moment of transition as we prepare our homes and our hearts for this beautiful holiday where we remember liberation and freedom. And there is so much work to do in preparation for Pesach, not just around the house, but in our hearts as well. I was speaking to one of my mentors who I speak about often, Rabbi Feivel Glasser, and Rabbi Feivel, as you all know, is an amazingly wise individual. And we were talking about Pesach, and he shared this beautiful teaching that I'd like to share. This is our period of time when we're preparing not only our hearts, but also our homes for Pesach. And one of those periods of preparation is when we think about gathering all the chametz in our house. And what a beautiful thing for a spring cleaning, I must say too, to be able to take a moment, gather all the chametz, all the leavened products in our house, and to be able to remove them from our home so we can really prepare for Pesach. Now, the thing that I've always found beautiful about that, and when we get into saying our chamotzi, I think we'll do Mary has asked that we do a little bit of chametz burning as we prepare for Pesach as a ceremonial preparation. What I'd like to share is this beautiful teaching about the idea of what separates and differentiates chametz from matzah. What differentiates chametz from matzah? And I'm going to make this experiential because we have a nice small group, and we can imagine we're sitting around a dinner table. Lulav obviously wants to raise her hand, but I'd love for someone to share, if you're willing, either raise a hand or unmute. What makes a difference? What's the difference between chametz and matzah as we prepare for Passover? Rose, yeah.
No, I'm just
Oh, you're just listening.
looking at your kids and laughing because I want to hear what
Should we
I
call
wanna
on the
hear what
claimant
they
kids? I'm kind of nervous to see what they say.
Yes.
Lulav and
I'm
Yuli, what's
passing.
something that you know about chametz or matzah? Really? Go ahead.
Matzah is when you it's bread, and then the other celebration is when you don't eat bread.
Oh, okay. So we have something going on with bread and not bread. We're rolling now in terms of chametz and matzah. Lulav, do you have something to share and add? What's that?
Challah is different than matzah. Matzah has other ingredients instead of just bread.
Oh, so maybe matzah has other ingredients. Let's see if some of our other friends have anything else to share. Anyone else have anything to share about the difference between chametz and matzah?
Time.
Mary, time. Do you recall what that time difference is? What is that beautiful difference between where the line is drawn of something being chametz or something being matzah?
You always say it.
I think it's 8. Yeah, Barb.
Okay, so Mike likes chametz, but he doesn't like matzah.
Oh, I love this.
He loves air.
So there's something about chametz that has air and fluffiness as opposed to kind of that flatness of matzah. And Mary, that timing piece is one of the keys. It's 18 minutes, right? If you combine water and flour and salt, guess what? If you can get it into the oven before 18 minutes,
It's matzah.
if you get it into the oven after 18 minutes, it's chametz, right? So there's a time component
18
to
minutes.
this.
Yeah, that's
18 minutes.
18. Yeah,
So there's a time component to this. And there's
My
also
matzah seems to come in a box.
What's that, Larry?
My matzah comes in a box.
Your matzah comes in a box. I don't think I've ever had bread from a box. And then the description, Barb, that you shared, there's air in bread. What else do you notice that's different between the two? Hold on.
So what makes rice chametz for the Sephardim?
Ooh.
Yeah, you can eat right.
So interesting, right? Deborah, that's a great question. The Sephardim will eat rice. They don't consider rice to be chametz. They consider it to be kosher for Passover. I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone know the answer to
I think that they don't eat rice.
If they do.
Well, they do eat rice.
They do? Okay. But there's
Well,
something,
rice doesn't have yeast in it.
well, no, there's something else that is like rice that they don't eat, that the Sephardim don't eat, that doesn't have yeast. It's just not part of their culture.
Maybe couscous.
And Nora, I see a hand raised. Do you want to follow up on Deborah's question and comment about rice?
I don't remember which grains, but there are a few. I forget which. I think one of them is oats, but some are self-leavening, considered self-leavening.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of this in terms of grains that we do or don't eat that we consider chametz that are self-leavening. Yeah, Al, I saw you unmute. Did you want to hop in?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that in the Ashkenazic community, things like legumes and all the many of the grains and anything with yeast in it, things like soybeans, those are all chametz.
And I think it has something to do with fermentation. You can't drink beer, anything that ferments.
Awesome.
And,
Something to do with
there's chametz matzah and kosher for Passover matzah. Because
Right,
somebody
I-
had to go through the matzah factory and make sure it had no bread around it.
Okay, make sure it had no bread around it and make sure that timing is just right.
Yeah.
Rose, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it had to have the 18 minutes. If it took 19 minutes, that's not kosher. They don't run with it when it's not
Yeah,
Passover. They
I
walk.
I linked a fascinating documentary about the Strites company in Lower East
yeah.
Side, which is it was released recently. You should watch it. It's on Amazon. It's really cool.
Awesome. So if you want to really dig in, look at that link Mary just shared. Five-O was sharing this beautiful teaching, which I'd like to share. This difference between chametz and matzah is almost negligible and minuscule, and yet so notable, right? When we think about, in a traditional sense, oftentimes, as my girls said, when we think about matzah and we think about chametz, as they talked about, the difference between matzah and bread. And matzah is simple. It's humble. There's almost a clarity to it. Where chametz, once you turn it into bread, it's puffy. And as Five-O described, there's almost a puffed up complexity. Sometimes, maybe if we think about it in terms of ourselves, maybe there's a personal thing that we can explore in this. What are the things in our lives where there's humility and simplicity, where there's clarity? What are the things in our lives where perhaps we're a bit puffed up? Maybe our ego is a bit puffed up. Perhaps there's complexity in that. And as we think about that idea of the difference between chametz and matzah in terms of the physical structures and the things that we eat or don't eat during Passover, can we also think about the ways in which we might see ourselves over this period of time? And the thing that I think is so beautiful is oftentimes if we think about those ideas, humility versus puffed up ego, simplicity versus complexity, we think of them as distinct difference, right? I think I often do. They're different things. The beautiful teaching of Passover, the difference between chametz and matzah is a millisecond. 17 minutes, 59 seconds versus 18 minutes. That simple difference of things that we think are so separate might not actually be that far apart. Even this, the letters of the Hebrew words matzah and chametz, the letters of the Hebrew word matzah, mem, sadi, and hey. Mem, sadi, and hey. The letters of the Hebrew word for chametz, a chet, a mem, and a tzadi. There's two letters difference. And the difference in those, there's two letters that are the same, one letter that's different. And the difference in the letters that are different, the chet and the hey, is a tiny little line. Is a tiny little line. And so as we enter into this period of reflection on freedom and liberation, as we clean out the corners of our cabinets and our homes of chametz, and we prepare to bring matzah into our lives for the next week, And as we ponder the difference between matzah and chametz, not just in the food we eat, but perhaps in attributes that we hold in the world, as we ponder our humility, as we ponder our ego, as we ponder simplicity and clarity, as we ponder complexity, and as we might have the urge to say, these things are so different, may we be reminded, just as we are with chametz and matzah, that the separation of those two ideals can be quite subtle. And may that give us strength and humility to move forward during this season of Pesach, to explore the ideas of matzah and chametz, not just in our households, but also in our hearts. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Pesach Sameach. I hope you have a wonderful Shabbat and a wonderful Passover. I'd like to take a couple of moments before we drink wine together and say a blessing over challah, to be able to share a mourner's kaddish. Take a moment to do that, since we do have a minyan. And so I'd like to take a moment now. I'll share that the mourner's kaddish in our book is on page 44. Mourner's kaddish in our book is on page 44. We continue to remember beloved community members, Ron Novak, may his memory be a blessing. David Goldfarb, may his memory be a blessing. My cousin, Hudson DeWeese, may his memory be a blessing. I invite those who are in a period of mourning, who are commemorating a yard site, to be able to unmute and share the name of those loved ones who you're remembering tonight, and then together we'll recite the mourner's kaddish. Yeah, Dad.
So this week is the yahrzeit of my father, Herman, and your grandfather.
Pop Murph. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, Margaret.
My father, Henry Miller.
Thank you, Margaret. Al.
My father-in-law, Charles Riot.
Thank you, Al. Keelan is mourning Ken Andes, a family friend. Neely is remembering also our cousin Hudson. Mary, did you unmute? No, okay. Carl, did you have someone you'd like to share? Okay. Did I miss anyone else? The mourner's kaddish is on page 44, and I'd ask if you are in a period of mourning, or if you are willing and able to stand in support of those who are in mourning, let's stand together. And I'd like to try to unmute if you're willing and you're saying the mourner's kaddish on page 44, and we can try to say it together. I'll try to share it a little louder just to pace us, but we'll recite the mourner's kaddish together on page 44. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shumei rabba ve'ama divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman karim ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha brechu le'ela mim kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba mim shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. I'd love to invite all of us to prepare to enter into our Shabbat meal together with a kiddush and a blessing over our last challah for the next week. So if you have a kiddush cup and a glass of wine, hold it up. I'd love to spotlight you. You got Larry with a beautiful kiddush cup.
You want Judd to help out?
What's that?
Judd to do the long version?
Oh, if Judd's there and he's willing to do the long version, I would love it, Mary.
Right. Come on, Judd.
Yeah. Let's see. Anyone else have a kiddush cup? I'm going to spot. Oh, Rose has a beautiful kiddush cup. Rose, I'm going to spotlight you too.
Judd's coming.
Okay, let's see. All right.
Josh, are we gonna burn our chametz?
Yeah, we're going to do that when we do, right before we do the challah.
Oh, careful. Really? Yes. Hi, you guys.
Hi, Judd. Shabbat shalom.
Oh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav ve'atzavanu Shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'fatzon hinchilanu zikron l'maaseh bereshit v'yom echila v'nichai kodesh zehel yitziat mitzrayim Lanu v'charta Yotanu kidashta Mikol hamim Shabbat kodshecha V'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hello.
So Mary, I want to bring you into this because you have this vision and I want to make sure I get it right.
I really don't have a vision other than a bonfire, but
we're gonna do mini bonfires across the Zoom world. So here's the idea. We're gonna ceremoniously prepare for this idea of Pesach upcoming. Take a moment to find a little bit of chametz in your house, and we're gonna do a ceremonial burning of the chametz, and then we're gonna eat some chametz. Then we're gonna say a blessing over the challah. So see if you can find some chametz in your house that you're willing to ceremonially burn.
all out of Pop-Tarts.
And as we do this, I think I'd encourage us all. Yeah, I think people are finding it now. So I'll give a second as people find a little bit of chametz. So hold it up if you have a little bit of chametz. Mike's got some from his fridge. Larry's got a little bit. Nora's got some chametz with a sad face. Is that a sad face? A sad face chametz. Theo's got a whole bag of chametz. Mike's got some. Rose has some. It's puffed up bread. So before we say our last blessing over some chametz for this Shabbat, what I'd like us to do is take this chametz. And let's do this in a way that doesn't cause any burning of hands or fingers. But consider for a moment this idea of the puffed up chametz that we're going to remove from our houses, and maybe take just a moment to consider the parts of your life or of your engagement in the world where maybe, just maybe, there's just a little bit of puffed upness to that. Maybe there's just a bit of our ego that we're bringing into that space. And as we prepare for Passover, as we prepare to clean the chametz out of our house, as we prepare to consider freedom and liberation, how can we free ourselves from just a little bit of that puffed up ego that we all hold at different times as we enter into the season of liberation and freedom? So envision that idea, and friends, let it burn. A little bit of burning of chametz as we prepare for this wonderful season of Pesach. And next year, may we all be together, Mary, as I think you said, guaranteed together, and may we do this over a big bonfire outside somewhere. And now let's enjoy just a little bit of our last chametz, or last challah for this week, before we enter into Passover. So grab those challahs if you have them. I'll spotlight some folks. Larry's got a beautiful challah. Who else has a challah? Anyone else? Last challah. Mike I should have highlighted Mike. I think Mike just put his comments in the wood burning stove. That was awesome. Rose has a challah. I'm going to spotlight
That
Rose.
would be correct.
That's not messing around or getting rid of that, Mike. If you don't have a challah, reach out into the internet worlds. Imagine you're putting a hand on the shoulder of someone in this community. Imagine we're all gathering together in community. If you're blessed to be sitting next to a little kiddo that's as cute as Theo, maybe put your hand on his shoulder. And let's say a blessing over challah and break some bread together. Go ahead, girls.
We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together. As our grateful prayer is said, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamosi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Oh,
May you have a sweet, sweet Shabbat and a Passover with freedom and liberation in mind and in heart. Please feel free to unmute and visit some on this Shabbat before we all separate out. Oh, Mary, do we have announcements? Mary, do you have anything?
Well, you've got Torah study tomorrow morning, right? Yeah. And then we have the Passover Seder, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. I think everything's on our website. I sent out an email today. So, and there's we'll have the Haggadah and everything, and it'll be Carl, Josh, and Judd, and it'll be really fun.
They're gonna download that.
Good. And Mary, we have time for dinner in the midst of everything too?
Yeah, the way we did it last year was that what did we do, Judd, about half an hour?
I think we went offline for about half an hour, or something.
Yeah, but we leave our cameras
Thanks,
on,
Mary.
just a sign, and we come back about a half an hour later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Well, you're going to hide the afikoman. How did we do that last year, Josh? We did, or everyone hid the afikoman. I can't remember. We'll work up.
You hid it in Josh's room and you had to find it on the screen.
Right. We'll hide it in Josh's. It'll be like an I Spy, and someone will have to spy and find it.
Kaylin just said, wait, that means we have to clean up our living room.
No.
No. Messy.
It was in your office.
It'll make it harder if it's messy.
If it's